Welcome to our HX webinar. This is our Galapagos fireside chat, and we are here today with four fabulous presenters, but I am going to start by turning it over to Tudor Morgan, who is our master of ceremonies today, and he'll kick things off for us. So Tudor, over to you.
Good afternoon, good morning, fellow explorers. Thank you very much for joining us. We have about 600 people registered for this fireside chat or webinar. Our aim is to keep it informal and have a discussion and give you a greater insight into this incredible destination of the Galapagos, and also the options we have in Ecuador and Peru before and after your voyage. I'm joined here today with some good friends and colleagues from around the world. We have Ramiro, who's expedition leader on Santa Cruz 2, who is currently on our ship MS Roald Armington in the Drake Passage, hopefully not getting too shaken around. Myself, I'm part of the Hurtigruten team. I'm based in the UK. Verena, our chief scientist, and Pancho, who's our destination expert, I was going to say, for the whole of South America. So great to have you all, and they will be very much part of this conversation as we talk through the webinar or fireside chat. As I mentioned, the aim is to give you an introduction, to give a sort of insight into what to pack, also about the natural nature and science, a bit about our itineraries, and as I said at the end, we will definitely give you an option to ask questions. Hopefully we will answer some of your burning questions as we talk through the webinar, but if we don't, put them in the chat, and there's quite an experienced team behind who will answer as you go, but the common ones we'll take as a panel discussion at the end. So I'll get started. The Galapagos, I think we all have this connection with the Galapagos in some way or another. Mine was definitely through Charles Darwin and that magical voyage of the Beagle. But the Galapagos are an isolated archipelago, 620 miles off the Ecuadorian coast, sitting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, made up of 13 major islands and 6 smaller. So very much this place of nature born from the Pacific. So absolutely magical. To get there, there's you have to fly. Well, not you don't have to. You could go by a yacht, but you have to fly to one of the two main airports at Santa Cruz or Baltra, and all our flights go through from the Quito's main airport and then via Guayaquil. What I would say is all travel to the Galapagos is very regulated. And I think, one of the amazing things that the Ecuadorian government have done is the protection of the Galapagos. So you're entering a national park that is controlled in terms of biosecurity, in terms of protection, and the national park. So it's something that we are very supportive of and applaud the Ecuadorian government in how these incredible islands are managed. When you go with us, we will talk a bit about the before and afterwards at the end, but we're going to crack on and get straight into talking about the Galapagos themselves. I'm going to ask, we use this amazing ship, Santa Cruz 2, which, Ramiro, you've spent probably years of your life on now. Could you talk us a little bit through this lovely ship, our lovely ship?
Hey, good afternoon. Yeah, definitely. Well, the Santa Cruz 2 is considered a small ship in comparison. It holds 90 guests. We run operations from basically when the sun rises until the sun sets in most of the islands of the national park. We have, as you can see in the pictures and the slides, we have beautiful, comfortable areas. We have a science center, we have a restaurant, we have a terrace, a gym. Not only can people enjoy the outside of Galapagos, but once they come into the ship, they can enjoy the beautiful areas that we have on board for them. Comfortable, luxurious. There's a nice panorama bar with a deck outside. As I said, there's a lounge, there's an area where we go upstairs and we can see the stars if the nights are clear. So it's a vessel that was thought for expeditions, for people that love to be outside, see as much as they possibly can, but once they come inside, they can comfortably rest and be taken care of on board the Santa Cruz too. We have
Beautiful.
also 2 hot tubs so people can relax, watch the sunset. Don't forget about that. We have zodiacs, boats that take us to the islands to and fro. We got kayaks, paddle boards. We have a glass boat on boat. So basically, anything that you can imagine to have an adventurous time in Galapagos, we have it. We have it for you.
Excellent. And when one of the things, obviously, Galapagos is on the equator. And I think, Pancho, you shared this slide with us. So I'm just going to bring Pancho in. When's the best time to go?
Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good night, good evening, whatever. Yeah, Galapagos is one of those great destinations that can be traveled and explored all year round. And my best line that I have on this one, which may sound like a sales pitch, is the only bad time is for Galapagos, is when you stay at home. Therefore, the best time is any time of the year you want. It's beautiful weather, and the islands change all the time. And I think that's the magical beauty of the islands themselves. And in any tropical country will give you that same line, that all year round it's good for visiting both Ecuador, Peru, mainland, and of course the Galapagos, as Ramiro well introduced us to.
Wonderful. Yeah, the only bad time is when you're not there. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I miss it. Yeah. Ramiro, you mentioned a lot of the activities, and I know I've been lucky enough to go a few times, and the advice I got before I went was snorkeling. Tell us about the snorkeling, because everybody said, whatever you do, take snorkeling at every opportunity.
Yes, it's certainly a great adventure. If you want to be so close to the wildlife, you have to try it at least. If you've never tried it, if you haven't done it in a while, go discover the underwater world. As you can see in the slide, you can be so close to the sea lions, sea turtles. And as Pancho said, really the temperature of the water doesn't change that much. When we have the cold season, easy enough. We do have wetsuits on board that you can wear one and go straight into the water. But probably the most unique experience that you're going to have when you come snorkeling with us is just that sensation that animals underwater, as above water, are you. They're curious. They want to come see you. They want to come see how you behave. They want to swim around you. So I recommend, just like you, Tudor, that everybody has a chance to do that at least once, if not twice, if not 3 times. Go in the water. Try it out.
And we have, as you mentioned in the introduction about the ship, we have many activities, and you pick and choose. As a guest, you can decide whether you want to go snorkeling or not. But obviously, try everything. But if you don't want to go, no pressure. You don't have to. The glass bottom boat is a great alternative to snorkeling. So there's lots of opportunities. And I'm just going to bring in. Yeah, go ahead.
And we have also zodiacs. We do cruising along the coast. I always say, if you like hiking, come to Galapagos. If you don't like hiking, come to Galapagos, because we have the cruise boats. If you like snorkeling, come to Galapagos. If you do not like snorkeling, come to Galapagos, because we have a glass bottom boat. We have kayaks. If you have a big camera and love photography, come to Galapagos. If you don't have a camera, still come to Galapagos. Because we have an onboard photographer that will take pictures for you. So Galapagos has something for everyone. Just come to Galapagos.
I love it. Well, we love the Galapagos too, as you can tell. Well, one of the things I'm going to ask Verena now, bring you in. One of the things, science and education is a really important part of our program. As you can see on this slide, we visit the Charles Darwin Research Station, and we have collaborations with scientists, not necessarily like we do elsewhere in the world, but we work very closely with Yokotoko, with Charles Darwin. Could you just talk a bit about how we do that?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good day, wherever you are in America. I would like to highlight that it is a very happy coincidence that today, 12th of February, but back in 1809, Darwin was born, and we are talking about Galapagos. So it could not be a better option
Pancho, I love it.
that you have this webinar today. Science, yes. We try to integrate science in everything we do. You will see that in when you join us on board. As Ramiro said, we have a science center where we invite you to go more into depth in all the amazing things that you will see and visit during the walks and snorkeling time in Galapagos. Our amazing naturalists and guides will help you go deeper into that, the understanding of the ecosystems and so on and so on. But we have also been working with foundations like the Hokotoko Foundation, which are dedicated to preserving the different animal species in the Galapagos, and we are particularly supporting one project involving petrels. And in the future, we hope to be able to bring you visit this station in person. But yes, Tudor, back to you.
Brilliant. But I think part of that Darwin's legacy, I think, captures us all. And something, being able to visit the Charles Darwin research station, I think is really, really magical as well. Okay, so Ramiro, you've mentioned the zodiacs, or as you call them locally, pangas. Do you talk us through a bit about how we get, what I know one of the questions and is how do we get on and off? How fit do we need to be? Am I going to have to launch myself out of a boat like a marine? Go for it, Ramiro, all yours.
Like a marine animal. Well, as you can see in the pictures, we do have zodiacs. We call them pangas locally, and they are the ones that we use to transport our guests from the ship to the shore. We don't have ports. We don't anchor at ports where people just walk off of a ramp. So I always say they have to be mobile enough to be able to get in and out of the zodiacs. People either from the ship into the zodiacs out of the ships. But as you can see, we always have a guide inside of the zodiac helping the guests come in and out of the zodiacs, and also we always take a crew member to help the guests in and out of the zodiacs. The first picture you see is that of a dry landing, which is quite easy. You're not in contact with water. It's a very fast procedure. The other one, as you can see, is landing on the beach, which is quite easy as well. Basically, you sit on the zodiac, turn your legs over, and stand up on the sand, and then you have the staff, of course, that will help you get away from the waves until you get on land. But again, mobile enough to get into the zodiac and out of the zodiac. But we always do have help from crew members to get our guests in and out of the pangas.
And the sort of daily operations on and off the ship, also lots of things going on the ship. But with that, we sort of put this together of what a normal day may look like. Ramiro?
Yes, this is a normal non-vacation day. I always say Galapagos is a once in a lifetime experience, not a holiday, not a tour. It's an experience. So once you come to Galapagos, you have to make it count. Usually, as you can see in the slide, we have breakfast at 7. By 8 o'clock in the morning, we're out already hiking. We'll be back at about 10:30, 10:45. And then at 11, we're back again, either for snorkeling, kayaking, paddleboarding, glass bottom boating. Then we'll be back at 12. We give the guests about 5 minutes to dry up, and then we'll go to lunch at until about 1:30, 2 p.m. A lot of the days we are departing the ship already at 2:15 more or less. Either again for snorkeling, kayaking, glass bottom boating, and then at 3:15, 3:30 we do a hike again until 6 p.m. because that's when the national park closes and also when the sun goes down. And then all guests are usually on board at 6:15. We get ready for briefing at 7. Before briefings, we do a tiny talk. One of the things that we love doing is actually linking the knowledge that the guests get outside of the ship linking it and making a learning moment on board the ship. And we use our science center. The guides will do a mini talk, a mini lecture every evening before the briefings. Then usually I do the briefings, and by 7:30 we go to dinner. And after dinner, if we have clear skies, we'll usually go stargazing. But by that time, most guests will be ready to go to bed. So it's a busy day, full of adventure, full of activities. They're not mandatory. Anybody can do 3 landings, 4 landings, 5 landings, 1 landing, as much as they want. But we always encourage our guests to make it count. You have to make it count.
Yeah, you traveled a long way, so make the most of it. But also, you choose the pace. But the team Ramiro and others on board put together a program to that. If you do it all, you sleep well. So that's very good. And then Verena, obviously, when somebody books with us, then we provide a comprehensive packing list. But these are some sort of thoughts about what to take. What would be your key things if you go on an expedition?
Well, if you ask me, the number one thing to advise is to bring binoculars. That really allows you to get a more close look at the wildlife that you will be visiting. Ramiro may tell other way, because it is such an incredible experience. You will see, you will not encounter a more tame wildlife than in the Galapagos, but we can discuss that in a bit. It's onboard life is very casual, so you don't need to bring very fancy clothing. Whatever you feel comfortable in is good for the Santa Cruz Dos. Bring good hiking boots, and also remember that there will be wet landings, so also shoes that allow you to step directly into the water. Of course, super important, sunglasses, sun protection, both for the skin and the lids, and cameras, and extra batteries. I think, you, as Tudor said, you will receive a comprehensible list of what to bring.
And just some other sort of thoughts to just think about in terms of, which may be a little bit different, or some the same with all travel, but to when we go to the Galapagos.
Yes, and what is super important is, if you need medication, please remember to bring it on your hand luggage in case your big suitcase gets lost or doesn't make it on time. It's important that if you are sensitive to seasickness, also bring those with you. But if you don't have them, you can get them on board. We are often asked, what about altitude, feeling the altitude when you get to Quito? There are medications for that, but what we recommend is that you remain hydrated. So drink lots of fluid and just follow your body.
Yeah, and maybe Pancho will brush on that towards the end on
exactly.
those. But it is worth considering that altitude change from Quito, and if you go to Cusco. But yeah, fantastic. And the important thing, one of the questions we get on all Galapagos sailings is we recommend yellow fever vaccination, but that's more not for the Galapagos, but more if you go into the Amazon rainforest, and that's a recommendation. It's not mandatory, but it's a recommendation. Okay, so then one of the amazing things, of course, we had to put in some pictures of wildlife, because that's one of the things. Some of these are professional pictures, and others are mine, so I apologize for that. But maybe we'll do sort of one slide each. Verena, do you want to start us off? What have we got here?
We have got an amazing land iguana and a Galapagos land tortoise. These are endemic species that you can only see in the Galapagos. And it depends also on what island you go, you will be able to see them or not. Ramiro, do you have a perfect or a preferred island to visit this to see these two species?
The giant tortoises. Well, on one of our itineraries, following Darwin's footsteps, we actually get to see them on San Cristobal, the same island that Charles Darwin landed on, and the same species that he actually saw. So it's super important that we actually get our beginning of the experience with tortoises there. So we will get to see those. And a beautiful place where we get to see them in the mountains is also in Santa Cruz on the next part of our itinerary. So we've actually tailored all of our itineraries to make sure that we go and get to see the tortoises from San Cristobal, where Charles Darwin was, and the tortoises in the mountains of Santa Cruz, where you see over 5,000 roaming around freely. So those are my two favorite places, which we do have them in all of our itineraries.
It's a bit like Jurassic Park with these massive tortoises walking around. It's absolutely amazing. You don't know where to look. Okay, then this is I put this in because when we went with you, Ramiro, back in, I think it was August, we went to this incredible island up in the north, and just the frigate birds. It sort of shows in the picture, just in the bushes nesting. These are and then also a Nazca boobies in the middle of the path with its chick, and you can see in the behind, just some the guests just walking on the path. But just for me, just the closeness and the tameness of the wildlife and how relaxed they are. But of course, as I mentioned, all our visitation ashore is guided by a national park guide that are Galapagos. They're trained, they're tested, so they're highly qualified and knowledgeable. So those interactions are super important. But it's so relaxing, and sort of just being there, standing next to these birds, hearing them chatter away, is just those magical moments. Yeah. I'm gonna have to move on and start crying. No. Okay. Right, Verena, come on.
Well, what other place on earth will you be able to see flamingos, frigate birds, and penguins in such a small geographical area? So the variety also is extraordinary. Penguins, though it is the only species of penguins living in the equator or further south than, let's say, 60 degrees southern latitude. So it really is impressive. The population, nevertheless, is quite small. I think there are around at most 100 penguins altogether. So it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pancho or Nacho or Ramiro, but I guess the population is really, really small. So it is a delight to go and see these animals in their natural environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that another thing that struck me is just the mix of the species, from a flamingo to a penguin, and then these amazing frigate birds blowing up their massive pouches to attract their mates. Absolutely gorgeous. The next one, boobies. We're going to have a comedy act, not a comedy act, a very serious act shortly. but here we've got blue-footed, red-footed, and the Nazca boobies, all absolutely with their dagger-like beak, and watching them feed is incredible. But why are they called boobies, Verena?
Oh, well, it comes from Spanish, from bobo, meaning a little bit slow, because they are a bit clumsy. They are clumsy on Earth walking, but actually they are absolutely gorgeous. And it is not very often that you get to see three species again in such a small geographical area.
Yeah. No, they're magic. They're clumsy on land, but in air, they're anything but clumsy. They're incredible acrobats. Ramiro, what does a blue-footed booby sound like?
Well, I'll make the sound of the male blue-footed booby. Okay, so pay attention. It's like a sharp whistling sound that you can hear. So anytime now, when all of you come to Galapagos and you hear that sound, you will know you are in front of a male blue-footed booby. And just tagging on what Tudor was saying, it's just amazing how the animals allow us to get so close. But you know what I always say? If you look at their eyes, because you will be close enough to look at them, they have such an innocent look in their eyes. And that's, as locals, that's what we love the most. You come to a place where every creature is so innocent. and that gives you a special feeling inside. Everybody should have that experience. They're all over the place, unafraid of you, and these are animals that want to come see humans. They are curious about humans, and to a degree, I always imagine they like us being there. And we can't say that about very many places in the world. So it's such a unique feeling, as you were mentioning.
And they do. I think the animals seem curious. They don't seem agitated or affected or afraid. They just seem curious, as if they're looking at other animals, which they are. We're human animals. No, magic. Thank you, Ramiro. It started a bit as a joke in August about what animals sound like, but it's continued. But you do a brilliant impression, so thank you. Pancho, we're not going to ask you now, but maybe next time.
All right.
Then this is again, high quality photos, but hopefully my son is not watching, because he would absolutely kill me for putting a photo of him in a chat with you all. But beside my son, you can see on the rocks some fairly funny shapes of marine iguanas, and they just pile themselves up with each other to create some warmth on land. And of course, the adaptation for them to be able to swim and how their tails adapted as a little rudder is absolutely incredible. And also the fun of watching the sea lions play around in the water. This was a photo of sort of three magical ones when I was there with Verena, and we were looking at some pictures yesterday to put in this slideshow, and Verena said, remember those three. Go on, tell us a bit.
Well, we were just sitting there admiring the geology around us, and we could hear the seals, but it took us quite a while to identify what they were playing. And it was the mother pushing the little one to go on top of the rock that you are seeing, and then the male coming and wanting to push him off the rock. So it was at least 20-minute spectacle of hearing them. Mommy said I should go on now, but Daddy said get off now. So it was really a nice experience.
It was great fun. Yeah. And of course, I many years ago studied geology. So one of the things I really like is obviously the natural history of Galapagos is amazing, but of course they're relatively new volcanic islands. So seeing where there have been recent lava flows like here, which almost looks like human ribs, but those patterns. And one of the important things about taking good hiking shoes with a good sole is these rocks can be quite sharp, as well as casting incredible patterns. And also where there are lava domes or where there's been a collapse, you can see Verena and myself standing up above an area that's collapsed below. So incredible, recent geology, as well as looking into the highlands and the colors of the volcanic rocks. So yeah, really good. You can see island creation in action, which I love. And then, of course, there's a lot of activities off the ship, but as Ramiro mentioned, a lot on board. Verena, can you just talk us through a little bit about the program?
Well, we have equipped the beautiful science center in the Santa Cruz 2 with a few microscopes and with museum type collection of bone clones that you can use, touch, feel, and get a lot more information about how the anatomy of the birds are important for the adaptation, for example, of the penguins, but of having 100% aquatic life, and so on and so on. So again, the guides, the naturalists will help you use this equipment to make the most of your experience in the Galapagos. We also support a few citizen science projects, and your guides will help you understand how to do this.
Fantastic. And I think we also mentioned earlier about the photographer. One important part, so you don't have to put up with my photos, is we do have a professional photographer on board. At the end of every voyage, we put together a logbook, which we send a link to you, which will have the selection of photos from that voyage for you to keep and download and keep as a good memory to add to your own photos, a bit like this presentation where we've got some professionals and some personal memories, put it that way. So that is the logbook. The other important thing to mention is since October, we've gone all inclusive. So on board, you will not have to dip your hand into your pocket. In the Galapagos, our sailings, kayaking, snorkeling, glass bottom boat, etc., all inclusive. So you don't have to dip your hand in your pocket. Drinks, all on us, of course, part of the package deal, all inclusive. So something to bear in mind when you're there. The next couple of slides I'm going to show you are the variety of different itineraries that we run. There's a number of different itineraries. The basic synopsis of the itineraries, there's an eastern one, which is called In Darwin's Footsteps, a western one, which is our iconic, northern one, which is based on the nature and wildlife. These are all combinable. They're combinable in different mixes with pre and post program, which Pancho is going to talk about shortly. Within one of the big things, we showed you lots of pictures of wildlife. Within the Galapagos, we call it the Big 15, the 15 key species from the Galapagos. On the different itineraries, these are what you can see at the bottom, the dots, and you'll see in the marketing material. This is what you will expect to see on each itinerary. So if you specifically wanted to go and see a penguin, then you need to pick that voyage. As we said at the start, all our voyages start and end in Quito. We have inclusive nights in Quito beforehand, but we also have the different options with visiting Cusco, Machu Picchu. So there's different opportunities there within the package. But of course, with all these things, if you are interested, or when you come and book, no better time to book than now. And when you speak to the agent, or you look through the details on the web, or speak to your travel advisor, they will be able to share what the potential best itinerary is for you in terms of timing and also the options for the wildlife. So these are detailing the different options that we have and the different lengths. And again, they're combinable, so you can see the shortest trips are sort of 6 days up to 14 days. And then if you combine some more, they can be a bit longer. But I think, as Pancho said, the only bad time is when you're at home and you're not in the Galapagos. So I think going to live on Santa Cruz for a year would be the best option. Although you might get a bit too much of Ramiro and his reliever Esteban. But other than that, it would all be a delight. So lots of options for you to get the best out of these incredible islands and the natural history. Of course, being able to go before and after, then we've got the incredible gateway cities and capital of Ecuador, and then the other options. So, Pancho, I'm going to hand over to you to talk to us about those options. Thank you very much.
Well, great. Thank you for introducing Galapagos. I'm a former naturalist, and I was stunned by exactly Verena's approach, and of course Ramiro's explanations on the things that actually happen to bring the experience alive to all of you on your screen. But as Ramiro well pointed out, it is an experience once you're there, and this is one of those trips that will definitely stay on your skin. It's one of those that you'll get to remember forever, because it changes the way we appreciate life. And I think that's one of the strongest, most powerful messages that Galapagos can deliver. And more so on a day like this, as Verena mentioned, a very special day. It's probably the only webinar that you'll ever see on the day that Darwin was born. So on February the 12th of 1809, Darwin was born, and there's another great coincidence, and that is that on a day like today, but in 1832, Galapagos was annexed by the country of Ecuador as an Ecuadorian territory. So that happened on a day like today. So those two great features are happening on a very special webinar, which is happening today. And so Galapagos sells by itself. And Tudor, oh, you were great at saying exactly what Galapagos is all about. It's one of those places that can be visited any time of the year. The only bad time is when you're not there. So do include Galapagos in your upcoming trips and voyages around the world. Now, the proximity to the Galapagos to the mainland is just about 600 miles, about 1,000 kilometers. And then in South America, you've got two neighbor great countries that share a lot of things and are very different at the same time. The food is very different on them. The biodiversity is very different on them. And thus the experiences that you can deliver, that we can deliver for you once you're there, are also very different. So coupling Galapagos with mainland Ecuador before the Galapagos or after the Galapagos, and same thing goes to Peru. It's one of those great additions to your trip. It will add a very different way of appreciating this section of South America. Because remember, South America as a continent is a huge continent. And fortunately, Ecuador and Peru are right next to each other to share all of that. So arriving into Quito, which is the city that you can see right there, is the capital of Ecuador, nestled at 2,800 meters above sea level. That's about 9,000 feet, is the welcoming city when you happen to be in Ecuador. There are two international airports in the country of Ecuador, one of them right there next to the city of Quito, in the valley right next to it. In the surroundings, the landscape of the Andes around Quito is definitely not only exciting and geologically interesting, but it also adds beauty to the fact that you are in the tropics and yet you're seeing these incredible mountains covered by ice and snow, and yet you're very close in your GPS to latitude 000, and yet you're seeing tropical ice. And there are very few capitals of the world. In fact, this is the only one that can deliver that in all your trips. So tropical ice right there in Ecuador. So there's the beauty of Quito. And then on the next slide, you can see what Quito is about on its historic center. The city of Quito was inscribed in the list of World Heritage Properties of the UNESCO in 1978, and that came together with Galapagos. And so, of course, visiting the historic center not only adds to the value of being in a city like Quito, but there is history right there. Many countries were not even formed when Quito was already a city. And I mentioned the name of the country, and that is Ecuador. And that goes very well connected to the fact that the Equator Monument, which is that one right there on your screen, is the reason why our republic was named as such, after the measurements of the French geodesic mission of the 1700s. So there's not just history itself, but actually how science was made, if you will, back in the 1700s, and more so in Galapagos with the presence of Charles Darwin. So going to the middle of the world monument adds not only that touristy novelty thing of being in both hemispheres just about the same time, but the fact that the metric system was developed right here after they noticed that the imperial system didn't have an arc long enough to measure part of one quadrant of the earth, and that is how the metric system was derived later. So this is the birthplace, when you think about it, about the metric system. So there's beauty, there's history, there is science, there's landscapes, there's good food that can be definitely experienced right there within the city of Quito, and of course in the historic center of the city. Up next in our slides, we can see that not far from Quito, but even within the metropolitan district of the city of Quito, there's a beautiful area that adds biodiversity to your whole program. So if you think Galapagos will deliver in terms of animal life and wildlife and landscapes, yes, of course, it will deliver. But when it comes to biodiversity of the tropics, this is only a little over 3 hours away by beautiful roads that take you from the elevation of Quito, again, about 9,000 feet, down to about 4,000 feet above sea level. And within that tropical forest is Mashpi Lodge, where the Mashpi Reserve is part of the most protected area of this place. And up next, there's a selection, there's a mosaic right there of things that can be experienced right there at Mashpi. And not only great accommodations are right there in the middle of the forest. Many guests tell us all the time, well, who thought of the idea of putting this gem right there surrounded in the middle of the forest? And of course, the efforts are of lodging people right there are not just for providing good service, good food, and good accommodations. It's also for the protection of this incredible tropical forest. And there are some species right there that you can see, whether you are a birder or a novice birder. This is a great location to be. And again, great contact with reptiles, amphibians, waterfalls, a little bit of rain because you are in the tropical rainforest, and then definitely the tower that takes us above the canopy to appreciate the whole mountain part of the tropical forest, in some areas labeled as the cloud forest. So, and of course, great selection of activities that can be done right there. Good hikes, easy ones, longer ones, a very early morning outing for bird watching. We also have the sky bike that you can see right there in the lower left corner that takes you through the canopy of the forest, which is the same background that I have right now there of Mashpi. And all of those activities are happening, again, it's hard to believe, less than 3 hours away from Quito. It's hard to believe that you have a capital city only 3 hours away from all of the things that you can see right there on your screen. But there are other things that can be done in the area as well. This is happening all the Mashpi area in that part of the tropical rainforest is west of the Andes. If you go east of the Andes, in other words, in the opposite direction, you'll end up right there in the Amazon rainforest. And the Amazon region, the Amazon basin, is shared by 6 countries in South America, Ecuador being one of them. And so traveling, flying from Quito, and you can see a map right there in the upper right corner, flying from Quito all the way into the Amazon to the little airport called Coca takes only 30 minutes, technically 28 minutes, but we'll keep it simple. 30 minutes, less than just about 30 minutes, you're there in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. And of course, such a lodge is the lodge used for the experience of the Amazon. This is a different component. Not only nature is there, the rivers, the lower rivers, of course, of the Amazon, but also the communities that live there. There's a human component of the area, and so it brings ethnicity to the voyage itself. It's not just nature, and great landscapes and wildlife and all that. Coupled to that is the ethnicity component of the Amazon rainforest. So all of that can be experienced in the Amazon of Ecuador in places like this one right there, Sachalot. So you arrive right there by plane, and then you go on the river boats, if you will, to the location of where the lodge is located. You can see that right there on your map. Up next, and this is probably something that always we get questions. Well, can I add Peru to my trip? Absolutely. Peru is in the area. Peru has a great reputation of not just the Inca presence, but also in terms of food. And experience in Peru is fascinating in the region of both Ecuador and Peru. As I said before, yes, there are some similarities with Ecuador because we all belong to the same geographic region and ethnicity, if you will, but there are also some differences. So don't think that one is going to be very, very similar to the other one. They will be a bit similar, but you will find lots of interesting differences. In Cusco, the imperial city of the Incas back in the day, is in fact a bit higher than the city of Quito in terms of elevation. Cusco lies at 3,400 meters above sea level. That's a little, or just about 11,000 feet of elevation. So Ramiro, Verena, and Tudor, of course, we always recommend the minute you get to Cusco, don't go to the gym. Leave the gym, rest for a while. You'll go to the gym eventually the day after and so on. But that arriving day, because of altitude, get excited about other things. Yeah. All right. Get excited about the weather, the mountains, the language that we all speak right there, Spanish with different accents, of course, in Ecuador and Peru. Get into all of that, and for sure, the food. So Cusco is going to be our Inca capital, if you will, of this place. And Cusco is not next to Machu Picchu. And here are a couple of myths that many times, first-time travelers may have in the area. Many think that Machu Picchu is right next to Cusco. Well, they're far apart, and we'll see a map in just a minute that showcases how you get to this location. But the essential difference is that Machu Picchu, the birthplace of where the Inca citadel is located, is at a much lower elevation. Machu Picchu lies at a little over 2,400 meters above sea level. That's about 8,000 feet. Similar, a bit lower than Quito, if you will. So you need to go from Cusco all the way down to Machu Picchu. And that is going to be done by train. Parts of it, of course, will be by road until we get to those stations. But this map allows me to illustrate that idea better. If we locate our eyes, if we put our eyes right there on the lower right corner, we will see the city of Cusco. And you can see the railway that takes us from that area eventually all the way down to Machu Picchu. One part will be done by road. In fact, that road can take us from the city of Cusco all the way into, and I'm going to point out right there, someone can use the pointer, and there's a split area right there called Ollantaytambo. Good luck pronouncing that one all week long. Ollantaytambo is where the program splits, if you will, and you go from the buses into the train. And then gradually the train takes you along the Urubamba River, lower, and lower, until we get to the small town of Aguascalientes, or warm waters, if you will. And the reason for that name is because there are some hot water springs in that area. And then from Aguascalientes, we need to go up a little bit. In fact, that little bit is going to be a great. I love this road, and everybody loves this one because it is a zigzag road that you go by bus, and you can see the type of buses on the picture on the lower left corner that will zigzag you all the way up to the entrance of the citadel of Machu Picchu. And all these exciting features is really what makes this section of Peru impressive. Ecuador Peru, in fact, is 5 times the size of Ecuador. So when you travel through Peru, you are definitely cover more ground area as opposed to Ecuador. But that ground area, that extra amount, is definitely within the Andes. So the landscapes of the Andes, the mountains, and of course the snow-capped mountains is just fascinating. And it's great to know that a civilization that only took about 80 years to built all of that in that location. Yeah. And that is definitely impressive. And that is what we can see right there in the map. And that is how we go from Cusco, eventually to Ollantaytambo, and finally into the beautiful citadel of Machu Picchu. So I hope anything that is about Ecuador and Peru has been showcased, have been put together in this area. This is why you need binoculars, and those are the ones that Verena was recommending before. With binoculars, believe me, the visual, the optical experience goes to a totally different level. So that's my pleasure of sharing with you both Ecuador and Peru.
Excellent. Amazing, Pancho. What incredible opportunities, not just to see this. We also call the third pole of the Galapagos, this amazing place sitting on the equator, but also these opportunities to see places like Machu Picchu, the cloud forest, the rainforest, and the capital city of Quito. Absolutely. Yeah, and Cusco, of course. Amazing. Before we just turn it back over to you, our guests listening to listening to us, and we're getting a little bit too excited. Our teams would like to share this exclusive offer for you for listening. So if you do come and book, and as Pancho shared, never a good time to be at home, but always a good time to be at Galapagos. So we're offering you a little incentive to book after this webinar with this code here. But if you just speak to your travel advisor and with this code, then they will deduct that from your booking. But I'm now going to hand it over. I'm going to stop sharing screen, and I'll ask some of the team in the background to also appear to give you a chance and to ask us your questions. Right, stopping sharing now. Great. Jesse.
There we are. Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse. I'm coming to you from our customer service hub in Tallinn, Estonia, by way of the state of Georgia. So lots of good questions. This is my favorite part of these webinars because people do tend to ask questions you didn't think to ask. For instance, Ramiro, Pancho, in your respective areas, in the islands and on the mainland, are there any dangerous animals that guests should watch out for?
Well, in Galapagos, not really. We have nothing that will hurt you, nothing that will on purpose come after you. We always say that any animal that has teeth, if you try to touch it or hurt it, of course, will react. Every reaction has a reaction. But even animals like a shark and a baby sea lion will be together and play together. So that should give you an example of how harmful or violent animals are in Galapagos. So not really, nothing that will hurt our guests on land or in the water.
I fully agree to that. And back in the mainland, in the tropical rainforest, and you can see again a bit of the background right there on my slide. Yeah, there are some dangers out there, but that's the reason why always every group goes with a naturalist, and the naturalist goes ahead. Their eyes are trained to spot things, and of course, there are beautiful snakes and there are beautiful tarantulas and you name it. But yeah, that's why the naturalist will point them out to you. And sometimes the fear of certain species is there, but the naturalist will explain which ones are really poisonous, for example, and what to do in case of what and this or that. But there's nothing that will come out and attack you in the middle of the tropical rainforest. I can think though of one thing that is not an animal but can definitely deter your experience, and that is any time that you do not have sunblock. All right, this is probably the only thing that will or could determine a very good trip or a very poor trip. In just adding on that, the minute you have sunblock anywhere SPF 50 or higher than that is going to be great. And anytime you purchase any of these back at home or once you get to Ecuador, but if you prefer to purchase it at home, even better, make sure that it's a reef safe sunscreen. Anything that is oxybenzone free is going to be good for the environment. And of course, not only in Galapagos or in the rainforest, it's going to be good any place you go, in your freshwater lakes back at home or in your oceans back at home. Anything that is reef safe is going to be good SPF sunblock cream.
Look after the environment. The most dangerous things are us humans.
That's
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that, Pancho. Thank you for bringing up the reef safe sunscreen. That was actually going to be my next topic. And would you say it's better to source that from home before you come?
Good point on that, Jesse. Many times, in shops in Ecuador, yes, it is available, but back at home, your selection may be greater than that. And it could be that you follow a particular brand because they're sustainable, because you travel with that brand of sunblock anywhere you go. So if that's the case, yeah, my suggestion is get it back at home. But the only two names or the only two things that you need to look for if you are getting into the ingredients and the chemicals on that is that make sure it's oxybenzone free and octinoxate. Love pronouncing that one. Octinoxate free. Those two are the ones that should be out of your list of chemicals when it comes to a good sunscreen. So Jesse, yeah, and everyone, if you can get it back at home, your selection will be greater than once you're out there.
Fantastic. And some of those are combined with insect repellents, which brings me to the next topic. Is there a mosquito season in the islands or mainland?
I'll start with that one and then pass it to Ramiro. Of course.
All right, start Punch.
When you see that type of background of mine, yeah, that's insect world, no doubt. And insect repellent will be required, needed. Galapagos is something that Ramiro will touch base in just a minute, but it will work on those two destinations, the same type of insect repellent. I always recommend when it comes to the tropical rainforest, do bring it with you because you will definitely need it.
Ramiro.
Yes, in Galapagos as well. During the rainy season, we do have mosquitoes that will come out, especially we're in areas where there's a lot of mangrove and vegetation on the coast. So we always recommend, a lot of people don't like to wear it all the time, but always at least have it in your backpack. So usually if it starts raining, all the mosquitoes will come out. So it's always better to be prepared and either have it applied on you or have it in the little backpack that the guests will take to the islands.
Thank you. Ramiro, is that something, insect repellent or sunscreen, is that available on the ship or are you constantly running out because people just assume you're going to have plenty to go around?
We do have insect repellent and sunblock on the shop, but I would try to make sure and either buy it in Ecuador or back at home, because we might have enough for 90 guests, but somebody comes and buys 10 containers of insect repellent, just in case, and that means that they're taking an extra 8 for the next 8 guests. So it has happened that we have run out of stuff. So I would recommend get it beforehand.
Fantastic. Will do. Okay, so Ramiro,
And Jesse, one of the things that I also want to say, just in case, especially for avid snorkelers, people that want to be in the water and want to try, the masks that we have in Ecuador, for example, are standards, adult and children. We've had cases where people have their own masks, which are basically tested and almost tailored to their face. So if any guest has their own masks which fit perfectly, which they love, I would recommend they bring that with them, because sometimes the standard ones that they are sold here that get delivered to us might not be the most perfect fit. And then, of course, if you have your own that you like it and you've tested it and it works, I recommend bring that with you as well.
Okay. Would you
and
say
also,
this?
if you wear glasses, if you have a mask with your prescription, that would be also good to bring along.
Yeah. Fantastic. Could they bring their own fins if they have them as well, or snorkel?
They can, but fins we do have in multiple sizes. So we're talking about space. Worst case scenario, flippers are flippers. But mask, like Verena said, if you don't have prescription mask, you risk not seeing anything. And like Tudor said, if you don't see anything, you want to go in the water, that's a good 30% of your experience at least there. So
okay. So you did, while we're on snorkeling, you did really sell everyone on snorkeling. So there's a lot of those questions. But broadly speaking, how is how is it decided on the when and the where of snorkeling, or can you just go snorkeling at any time? Is it guided? And do you need to know how to swim?
first of all, I'll start from the back to the beginning. Do you need to know how to swim? Yes, you need to know how to swim and be comfortable in the water. B, we have sites where you are allowed to snorkel. So within those sites, we snorkel, which are almost every day that we're allowed to snorkel. But then, of course, I assess the sites. It might be one day that it's too windy, too tough for the group of guests that we have. We might change the site. We might move it. We might shift it around. We might cancel it. We might go walking first, and then when it gets less windy, we might snorkel. Invert the program. So the EL is the one that makes us that decision. And what was the third part of the question? So you need to know how to swim. Internally, we decide where when it's allowed.
Yes. Is it a guided activity as well? Like it's do we go in groups with someone, or is it
you
free
go with a
range?
guide? No, you go with a guide. You go with a Zodiac. There are a couple of guides that will go in the water with the guests, but not every guide. We need to have guides on top of the Zodiacs patrolling the area for safety reasons. But there's always a couple of guides that will go in the water with the guests.
And sometimes, right, just from when I've been Ramiro, we've gone sometimes from the Zodiac into the water from the Zodiac, and I think you call that deep water snorkeling, and sometimes from the beach. So there's been that variability, and I know some guests have said, "Oh, I don't want to go at the Zodiac," but they've had the option to go from a beach at a different site. So again, you can choose on your own mobility level and how you want to experience it. And the glass bottom boat, another great option.
Yes, glass bottom boat, stand-up paddle boarding as well.
Yeah.
Onboard languages. How many different languages could they expect? Variety from the expedition team or ship crew?
Depends on which languages we have from the guests. So everybody speaks English, of course, and Spanish. When we have German guests, both of the expedition leaders speak German. We will have guides who speak German as well. And when we have French guests, we will hire guides who speak French and any language of Italian. If we ever have Italian, we will also hire guides who speak Italian. So they are guided in their own language, if they are booked in that language, of course.
Yeah. But English is the working standard language. Yeah.
Okay, so is there any avian flu concern in the Galapagos?
Hello.
Hello?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We don't have avian flu anymore. For months already, they've been tracking some of the islands that were infected last year. They've been doing some testing, and they have lifted all the restrictions on all of the islands. So the government is pretty positive that we won't have any trouble, like in other places in the world. So Galapagos is free from avian flu at this moment.
Excellent. Very good to hear.
Having said that, biosecurity in all fragile areas or pristine areas is very important. So biosecurity going into the Galapagos from the mainland is very important, and then also maintaining cleanliness and of footwear is an important part of expeditions everywhere in the world, including the Galapagos. But the fact that the islands are now no longer concerned with avian influenza is brilliant. Be a big concern a few years ago. So yeah, fantastic.
Oh, one of the guests says they have a friend from Tallinn in Texas, and in Tallinn or in Estonia, they say there's an Estonian in every port. Okay.
Could I just, Jesse? Could I just bring up just one thing?
Sure.
To be able to operate in the Galapagos, you have to be Ecuadorian company.
Yes.
And we're really proud in HX to have partnered with Metropolitan Touring, who actually run the ship for HX. We have a long-term charter agreement to run it as a HX product, and they run it for us. So we have this brilliant relationship with Metropolitan. So some places on your trip you may see Metropolitan, but we work really closely with Metropolitan, a long-established firm with the best reputation in the area to be able to deliver these amazing trips. So we have that relationship. Off our own back, we would not be able to operate in Galapagos. So it's a brilliant relationship to be able to work with Metropolitan.
And actually, writing on what you've just brought up, so we're pretty much out of time. But I do want to ask make one last inquiry. So, and anybody can answer this, but what would you say sets HX apart from other providers in the area? And also, how is our ship size experience? Would that differ or benefit over a much smaller, say, 16-passenger ship or boat at that size?
Do you want to take it, Ramiro? I've got my own thoughts, but you're the man on the ground, and Pancho's the man on the ground as well. Yeah.
Sure. So Jesse, what was the first question again, real quick?
Why HX?
What sets us apart?
Why HX over anyone else? What makes us unique there?
Well, I always say to guests, putting brands aside and everything, if you travel with companies who are responsible with the environment and with the communities. If you shop, do the same with companies. If you do business, if you're a businessman, do business with companies which are responsible with environment and communities. And that is HX. HX is a company that not only cares about the environment, but also the communities, the people that live in these environments, around these environments. And that's something that not every company practices. And the vision of the company, the goal of the company is not only to leave the places that we visit as we found them, but we want to leave them better than we found them. And that's something unique that you cannot find in many places of the world. So I would say that is what sets HX apart. Apart from the excellent guides, the science center, the scientific projects that we have, the knowledge, I mean, the core principle of the company is sustainability. Leave the places that we touch better than we found them.
Yes, and that definitely falls right in line with the ecotourism, the ethos of Galapagos itself.
Yeah. And the ship also, it's nice to have a ship that's 90 people. A lot of people have the belief that 90 is too big. You cannot do anything. You cannot go anywhere. But it's actually the opposite. The bigger ships are actually more controlled than smaller ships. So they truly practice ecotourism. Bigger ships are allowed to go to islands, further away islands where other smaller vessels may not go to, because we carry a doctor. We have satellite communication. God forbid anything happens. We are always in contact with the authorities, with the other islands. We have not only one generator, we have two generators. One fails, the backup kicks in. So we have redundancy systems, and that is that's the reason why the government allows us to go to Genovesa, the island that Tudor was speaking about, all the way up in the north, which allows us to show the guests some of the wildest and most isolated places we have in Galapagos. And not every company gets to go to those places. Only the ones that have bigger ships and all these little toys and instruments that are actually required. God forbid anything were to happen, we are prepared.
Fantastic.
And the only thing I can add to that is that when you have an itinerary thoughtfully planned based on the destination, based on the highlights, and thus the need of the use of the Big 15, it makes all sense in terms of why do we travel that far in few number of days. The idea is to show you not only those iconic species, but the species that make Galapagos so different in the world and so special. And that goes connected to any different markets that are out there that have a lot of time available and others that don't have that much time available. The idea of the Big 15 is that regardless the market and the amount of time that you have available, that you can enjoy and experience all those things that we see in documentaries on TV, things that we've read on books, and things that we normally hear from others in social media. The expedition vessel will deliver, and the expedition vessel will deliver well in terms of the activities planned, as Ramiro well mentioned. And the beauty of having various naturalists that can handle different things at the same time, and you pretty much decide on what you want to do and how you want to do it, and how active you want to have one day or how not so active that you want to plan on your next day. So all of that is really what sets apart a smaller operation as opposed to a larger operation. And final word on that is that whenever you see the Santa Cruz 2 in different sites of the Galapagos, chances are you're going to see that vessel just by itself, meaning that it feels like you own that island as opposed to share it with too many other boats around. So it's your personal connection, if you will, of the ship, the expedition, and the islands.
Yeah, there's a limit on how many people can be at a landing site, and yeah, so if you're on a smaller boat, there could be several other smaller boats there as well.
Correct.
Whereas when we show up, we have it all to ourselves.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
That's how it works.
And
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
more passengers on the ship means more guides, which means more possible activities to choose from as well.
Mhm.
And you don't have to wait for your one guide to finish
Yes.
one activity before he starts doing the
and
one
all-
you were interested in.
And also, Jesse, something that we treasure as a company as well is more flexibility. Having a bigger ship, more staff, more guides, more flexibility, and a trip to Galapagos being a once in a lifetime. As a guest, as a customer, you want to have that. You should treasure that, and that's something that we never want to change. The flexibility.
Yeah.
And so much more knowledge on board too.
The opportunities are fantastic, and I think the opportunities of the destination are amazing. As you can see,
I'm sold. Where do I sign up?
Yeah, we're all passionate. Yeah, when can I go back? I've got to speak to my boss. Yeah, I think we thank you, team. You've done an amazing job of sharing this incredible destination, and thank you, Jesse, for curating and pooling the questions together.
My pleasure.
When we finish shortly, but I'm going to indulge us all and ask Ramiro for another favor. But at the end of the when we finish, there will be a questionnaire asking you for some feedback, which we welcome because we like to make these webinars and fireside chats as informative as possible. So if you would indulge us a little bit more of your time, that would be much appreciated for some feedback. But before we finish and we wave goodbye, Ramiro, what does a blue-footed booby sound like?
All right, let me concentrate for the other attendees who were not here. In 3, 2, 1. Now Verena has to dance. Verena, you're not responding to the booby call.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. And we very much hope to see you on board Santa Cruz in the coming months, coming year. Always a good time to go. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pancho. Thank you, Charles Darwin, for putting the Galapagos on the map. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See you all soon.
Thanks.
Jesse,
See you soon.
book Jesse. Book now, Jesse.
Yes, I'm on it.
Goodbye.
All
As soon
right.
as
Well,
I'm done
thank you,
booking everyone
everyone.
else.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. This will conclude our webinar.